back to the Important Nonsense Podcast. 32 teams in 32 days. The Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the first time ever that I've actually gotten that correct. I believe that is a true statement. They'll always be Oakland to me, at least until they win something. And then maybe they can earn the right to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Neil Smith, Mike Burland, at that FF Nerd, Jason Draven, coming back at you here on beautiful August 9th. 32 teams in 32 days, as always, taking you around the league, breaking down every team, getting you prepped for your fantasy football drafts that will be happening at the end of the month. Gentlemen, we'll go through the PSAs in a moment, but how are we all doing? Are we all super excited in our little Chargers hats to talk about the Vegas Raiders? Is everybody so happy?
AFC West, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
We'll be as unbiased as possible.
That'll work. We're not doing a very thorough job of set design because if people are paying attention, I think they'll know what tomorrow's show will be. But we'll leave them in suspense for now. Couple quick PSAs before we get started. All the rankings that you will hear are, as far as the ECR goes, from Fantasy Pros. Thank you, Fantasy Pros. We are, as always, a Fantasy Pros affiliate and love working with them. If we reference our own rankings, obviously we will bring that up. All the depth charts that we are using come courtesy of Player Profiler. Shout out to Jack Kavanaugh. This is all based on 12-team PPR redraft format. We will probably have some nuggets along the way for other formats. We will bring that up as we go. And, check out our website, importantnonsense.com, and sign up to be a member of our Discord, which you can do courtesy of Fourth Wall directly from our website. I was corrected on our own URL by people in the background because I am a consummate professional, as we know. It's not my fault that they don't use the same naming convention as what Patreon used to do. It's what they should have done. It was all invented by the same people. I don't know why they would change naming conventions. But yes, you could register to be a member of our website at importantnonsense.com, get access to our Discord, and keep Jason company all season long. He's lonely. He needs people to talk to. He won't. Mike and I won't sit around and listen to him furnace blast hot takes in our face past a certain point. We end up getting tired and we have to go do something else.
Yeah, but then you learned just yesterday that there's a whole show around Twisted Metal.
No, that wasn't a hot take. That was actually genuinely informative. I did not know. We are not sponsored by Peacock in any way, but check out Twisted Metal on the Peacock app. It's surprisingly good. Not affiliated in any way. Just an opinion. Surprisingly good. I don't know how they paid Will Arnett to do that. I don't know where they found the money for that, but they did, and that's surprisingly entertaining. It's not highbrow, let's just say. It's not
supposed to be. I mean, it's based on a video game.
It's definitely not supposed to be.
But it's very entertaining, and I really enjoyed it, the whole series. So
it's only 10 episodes. You can get through it
very quick.
If you have insomnia like me, you can knock it out in one night. Like it's if you are a child of the 90s and remember the old PlayStation Twisted Metal games, it's worth your time. Like I get older every day.
I know. You didn't believe me when I said that. You're like,
no, I didn't. I'd heard about this, and I never thought that they would actually figure out how to get that released. So, no, I did not believe you. I assumed it was some sort of like internet rumor or something. No, it's real. They released that show. I cannot believe they figured out how to get the money together to actually get that show made and released. But here we are. Welcome to it. And go see The Meg 2 in theaters, starring Rainn Wilson. It's also not affiliated by that.
Starring. He is on the
He's in
cast list. Yeah.
Sure.
It is a credit.
Not affiliated with that either, but it's
we continue to bring it up. So
we were going to get there eventually. All right, let's talk about the Raiders. As reluctantly as I am to do this, we are contractually obligated. Yeah, we know what
right.
we're contractually obligated to talk about every team. So we'll go through it. We got to at least present the illusion that we're fair and unbiased. We will talk about the Raiders. The Raiders actually did make. They did make. I can't. They did make. They did make. I need my UGG boots and my latte. I just can't even. I can't even do it.
You have to up top too.
The Raiders did make one move I did like. They signed Jimmy Garoppolo. They finally moved on from Derek Carr and brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think after what we saw from Derek Carr last season, who could blame them? You know, like he was that whole team disintegrated like a cake in the rain. Everyone was at each other's throats, and rightfully so. Their defense was atrocious, and this year they've pulled some necessary. The problem is they didn't solve what I think is the actual problem, which is Mike McDaniels. You didn't solve the real, or excuse me, Mike McDaniels. Jesus, Josh McDaniel.
There you go.
You didn't. I'm already gonna have to go do 2 minutes in the penalty box before we've even started today.
Well, during that time, make sure you go and get coffee, and we'll restart this whole thing.
No, I don't need coffee. I need like whiskey. That would actually really help. That might loosen my tongue to a point where this would all be unairable. That would be the problem. See, I think I've been sneaking the suspicion that Mike is drinking whiskey actually out of that coffee mug just to. What is that?
I wish.
I thought that was a Mike's Hard Lemonade, actually, Jason. I wasn't even going to address it. I was literally thought he was drinking a Mike's Hard.
Come on, you know my brand better than that.
I can't.
I'm not
it's
even
Mountain
sure what
Dew.
that is.
It's a Mountain Dew Glare.
Hard Mountain Dew, Baja Blast, pineapple.
Yeah, he drinks the hard Mountain Dews, which I've only ever seen in the state of Oklahoma because the plot of Idiocracy is not actually like a fictional thing. It's literally a documentary. Like we're living it, real timeline. Like
no idea where it's can't find it anywhere else. So I
it's
drive
got
to
it's
Oklahoma
got what
to
plants crave. Like it's
so good.
If they didn't have to pay Mike Judge royalties, I think that actually would be the slogan for that. Anyway, before I go do my little stint in the penalty box, Josh McDaniels is still the coach of this team.
Sure.
Don't see it getting better until that is resolved. So, but they did make some token moves. I like Jimmy Garoppolo as a better fit for the team than for what they were going to get out of Derek Carr. And Garoppolo, fortunately, here's the thing. No one else agrees with me on this take because Jimmy Garoppolo in the opening rankings, quarterback 29, translates to about 220 overall, so not draftable, ADP 197. So he's functionally going undrafted. He is just outside of draftable range. The public's a little more bullish.
But where do you have him ranked? Like personally?
Where do I personally? It's like 27. He's just inside. He's just in QB 27. He's just inside draftable range for me. He is a what I would consider to be a serviceable backup in a one quarterback league. So it's not anything that I'm going to get excited about, but I do think that he's good enough to not crash the car. But he's not something. It's not something that I'm going to get super excited about. It's just he's a guy. He's starting. He's better than rostering Sam Howell, at least on paper. We'll see what happens when the rubber actually meets the road on that. But where do you guys have him ranked? Is there any optimism for this at all?
I guess I'm the most optimistic because I have him at 16.
Oh, we're starting. So we're starting. Where is my whiskey? Actually, I'm really gonna need that whiskey tonight, folks. I might be doing this with a beer in my hand by the time we get to literally the next show. I don't know. It might be that kind of night.
It'll be fine.
16.
Yeah.
What are some quarterbacks you have going behind Jimmy Garoppolo, if that's the case?
Dang it. Now I have to go back to, let me see.
See, Mike, this is why we can't do these shows in a timely manner. We lose 10 minutes, and then we immediately derail. And then
well, Derek Carr.
Okay.
Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love,
these
Sam
are the low-hanging
Howell.
fruit ones. So, like, that can't be like
Desmond Ridder, Gardner Minshew. You right around him, Kyler Murray.
Okay, but like 16 in the ECR is like Jared Goff.
Also, Jared Goff is
who would
right
be
behind
flanked by like Anthony Richardson, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford.
But you said Jared Goff's behind Garoppolo?
Yeah.
In his rankings, which is shocking to me because of the love poem that he wrote Jared Goff during the Detroit Lions show. So I'm very confused by your rankings. Could you just do me a favor? Start at like 10 and just go down your list, please.
Fields, Wilson, Lawrence, Jackson, Watson, Jones, Garoppolo, Murray, Goff, Carr, Prescott.
What? Okay. I'm so confuzzled by the Dak Prescott is what now?
20.
See, this is why we should have covered this in the Cowboys show. We missed a Mike. The shows that we just recorded last Saturday with Mike Manning have not aired yet. You got to take Mike Manning's role of taking on bar bets with Jason, because we started going through his rankings and Mike Manning's just offering up bar bets the whole time. So that is wild.
I'll take
with that.
whatever bar bets. I mean, Goff, Prescott for sure over Jimmy Garoppolo. For me, he's like maybe he's the second QB if you want to roster two, but there's also like no upside to me. I mean, even in his full healthy years, he's kind of like, in terms of his average, he's basically like the QB 17, 18. So I just don't see much upside with him. I'd definitely rather Goff or Prescott over Garoppolo. I don't see much changing from this year. So whatever bar bets we can do, I'm in.
I think part of the reason I have him so high is I'm worried that they're not going to have Jacobs, and at that point, they're going to have to throw more than they wanted to initially.
I think even if they did have to throw more, that you still have to throw a lot more to get to where you have Dak Prescott rated. That's what's shocking to me, is the whole Dak thing that low, and the Fields at 10 is an insult. But that's a whole separate conversation for a different day. So you'd rather go Purdy over Jimmy Garoppolo, but that's kind of the neighborhood, is what I had heard.
No, Purdy's lower.
Purdy's lower? Okay.
I have closer.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he's at 24. Love, Howell are all in that same area to me. Jones, Pickett, like Tannehill.
See, those guys, Purdy, Love, I'll take them over Garoppolo because there's some kind of like unknown / upside to me, assuming they're your second quarterback. So that's kind of where I'm at with those guys. Like, I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get 16 points a game from Garoppolo. And if I want that, I'll pick them up on the waivers, spot start. But as a second quarterback, give me Howell, give me Purdy. There's a slight upside with those guys at least.
That's why I was saying I got him around 27, because it's a Howell, Mac Jones, Ryan Tannehill kind of neighborhood for me, where it's like you'd probably consider it if you were playing in a home league where people are definitely taking two quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Because the waiver wire is going to be a nightmare. So you'd probably grab them, stash them, and then if somebody pops on the waiver wire, you cut them later. And because, Mike, I think you and I see this very similarly, where it's like the floor might be there for you. It's something.
Yeah.
But I don't see where the ceiling would have to come in, because he would have to throw 3 touchdowns a game or generate some kind of rushing. And he doesn't really do either of those two things historically. And there's the concern about him playing the whole season.
Yeah.
Which has also been an issue historically.
Maybe in a two QB league, you take him over those guys because, you, like you said, you get that floor, a little bit of a safety there in your second quarterback. Maybe you want a little more safety, but if we're talking one quarterback, give me Howell, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. I'll take all those guys over Garoppolo as my QB2.
Be nice to see Brock Purdy get named the starter. Okay, so Jason, you're saying that your take on this is that Garoppolo should move up because there's a concern about what we're going to talk about in a second, which is the Josh Jacobs potential weirdness holdout theoretically.
Plus his added weapons. I mean, they did add a couple players that interest me.
Okay, yeah, this is going to be an interesting show. Okay, so your theory is that one of the run heaviest teams in the league is going to just abandon that if their player isn't going to be able to, or is unwilling to do it. And that will translate to more opportunities for Garoppolo. And you believe that he is up to the challenge of capitalizing on said opportunities.
Yeah. Especially because of his weapons. I mean, which we'll get to. But
I'm just trying to break this down for, the radio audience that listens to it. Because this is a thing for other people.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
So is that the argument? That's the argument here. Like lay it
I
out.
mean,
You can't just sit here and tell me you got Garoppolo over Dak, and then just ride off into the sunset Lone Ranger style. You got to give me something here. Like,
well, I mean, we've really only seen one, I guess, kind of 2 full seasons of Garoppolo, and it was on a team that, I mean, they had the best running back, so why would you have to throw it? I think that being a bigger change because, one, as you brought up, Jacobs does have some injury history, is potentially going to be holding out or whatever ends up being the issue there, as well as I would say, weapons if he is actually going to throw, which the Raiders have done a decent amount, but it's, again, I just see him producing a lot more, especially since he's pretty smart with the football. So when he is passing, he doesn't really throw horrible passes.
Mike,
no.
counter arguments, rebuttals.
No,
again, radio show. Like, or other people. Like, dead air is generally bad.
I understand the weapons thing, and I can see it. I don't know if what was it? Garoppolo 2021, basically, 15 games he played in, so he missed 2 games. Is Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle? I think those guys are better than what he has now as a whole. I think maybe the main guy who we're going to talk about is better, but overall, those 3, I don't know. I just don't. I don't really see them moving away from the philosophy of maybe they don't run it as much, but I don't think it's going to be a big enough difference to make Jimmy Garoppolo that top 15 guy or something.
So last year they threw the ball 586 times. So, and I have him currently at 565. With his completion rate, I have at about 68, 69%.
Actually refutes your argument from a minute ago about them throwing more, but okay, let's not bog down into that.
Well, okay, I do have Jacobs currently as he is playing, so which has it up, but I can adjust it down when if that actually happens. So that point, it's his average yards per attempt is 11 or 8.3. But his yards per catch is 12.2. So I lowered that down too because it's the Raiders. I mean, I'm trying to be somewhat fair here because it isn't Deebo Samuel. We don't have the quite explosive plays out of him and Ayuk. So I also lowered that to 11.3. And it gives him roughly 4,400 yards. And then I gave him about the average for touchdowns, which is about 5%. So he has 28 at that point.
I'll give you this. He's got an easy strength of schedule. I'll give you that.
He's going to have to. I mean, they're not, again, at that same point, they're also going to play the Chargers and the Chiefs twice.
I see no universe where he gets that many attempts. That's part of my problem here. I think it's closer to like 475 actual attempts for about, best case scenario, 3,500 yards, about 22 touchdowns, 12 picks. That's about his career average. Kind of where I'm at here with that. You also get no rushing floor. None. That's why I'm confused by the Dak thing. Because even with Dak, you get some level of rushing, even though it's not what you used to get. I'm talking about for Jimmy G, I'd be shocked if he got you like 80 rushing yards for the season. He's like a statue. He can run in the pocket and move into the pocket, but
I have him at 33.
You're just projecting this insane volume year with crazy efficiency.
Crazy.
Okay. Efficiency. All right. Fair enough. If that's the way you want it, Mike and I are going to tell you, stay away from this. Jason's going to tell you he's a QB2 and likely should be your backup rostered in all leagues, and you're getting an incredible value given his career. That's Jason's take in a nutshell. Not to speak for him, but I'm trying to synopsize this. Dak thing short-circuited my brain. Jimmy Garoppolo outscores Dak in fantasy points. What do you want to do here? We have to a case on local beers. Is that what we've got to now? because I'm taking the Dak side of that all day long. Continue. I don't even hate Jimmy Garoppolo. I just think he's a game manager. He's a better real life NFL quarterback than fantasy option.
Yeah. What I like about Garoppolo is he can make the fantasy options on this team. He can produce relevant fantasy options, which is kind of what I like the most out of Garoppolo. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if he stays healthy all year, he probably will finish as QB 16, but it's not going to move the needle in terms of points per game.
I'm not even convinced he could get there, considering that last year, before he got hurt, through 12 games, he was averaging 16.7 fantasy points in a 4-point passing touchdown format, which would be normal. And so we could sit here and debate, and we will, whether or not his weapons are better. But it's kind of his like career average is about 17 points. And it's like, if you're only averaging 17 points, maybe you could crack into that neighborhood of like 16, but you're going to need some help. Somebody's got to get hurt, and he's going to have to play the whole season.
Yeah.
If you want to have a conversation about points
again,
per game, you could have that argument, I suppose. But I'll give you this much, Jason. I'm not going to argue with you about the idea that if you actually believe that he's going to take the next step forward, your take does have that level of logic at the end of it, where it's like, well, you can get an extreme value because he's functionally undrafted, so it's basically off the waiver wire. I think also now we will find one of the key debates that will be happening on Monday nights with the Mike and Jason waiver show that we do every Monday night. So I have a feeling this topic will come up again. So we'll foreshadow that into the future. We'll keep talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, but through the lens of other players, because we do need to kind of move this forward. We touched on it a moment ago with Josh Jacobs. Unless you've been living under a rock or brand new to fantasy football, Josh Jacobs is coming off a career year from last year. It was actually a make or break year for him, in my opinion. Bought him the franchise tag.
And he made it.
Oh, yeah, it did. Bought him the franchise tag because the running back market is a joke. So that's what he gets it for all his hard-earned effort and fireman carrying what was left of that team to what I was going to say to the finish line, but really there's just to not to be just above embarrassing.
To RB3 in fantasy last year.
He was the RB3 in fantasy this year, or last year. This year, he opens as the RB10, which would translate to 19 overall. His ADP is 24 overall. I would normally not have much of a problem with it. Actually argue that you're getting a discount. The problem is what we touched on a moment ago. Josh Jacobs is not very happy with his current contract situation, and I completely understand why. That is not a mystery. I would be upset too. And a lot of issues with this. He's not reported to camp, threatening to hold out. As we know, the holdout thing with the CBA doesn't really work that way anymore because the Le'Veon Bell rule changes. He will not amass any contract service time if he does, in fact, hold out, and will get fined an obscene amount of money every week. This historically does not go well. I would expect Josh Jacobs will be reporting and probably playing for week 1. But what kind of condition is he going to be in? And then we get into the idea that I don't think this team is going to be very good. He might be the lone bright spot. Mike, I'm getting a lot of nodding. Break in here. Stop me from talking.
Yeah, he's a tough, again, August 9th, we don't know right now. As of right now, he's not practicing, he's not reporting. So it is really tough if for whatever reason you are drafting, slow drafts, whatever. Right now, you have to take that into account. Let's just say he is there, and his ADP has kind of been where it's at all season or all off season. Yeah, it hasn't changed much. And I'm all in on Josh Jacobs. If you can get him, late second round, start your draft with, McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, or Jamar Chase and Josh Jacobs. I love it. I love where he's going because I think they're just going to do basically the same they did last year. Give him 300 plus touches. They don't have any incentive to keep him healthy long term. Obviously, they're not in on him long term. So love Josh Jacobs, assuming he's there. But it is a big thing. We're, again, August 9th, we're, 10 days or so away from where it starts to getting a little scary of okay, Are you going to report or something going to be settled here? But again, let's just approach it like he's there and he has a week under his belt of practice and he's there for week 1. I love Josh Jacobs late second round. Again, this guy can be a top 5 running back again this year. He's going to get 300 plus touches. He's always been an efficient guy running the ball. I don't think that's going to change with this offense and Jimmy Garoppolo there. So I'm kind of all in on him in that mid to late second round.
Jason, where you land on Josh Jacobs?
I mean, I have him ranked at RB10 currently. So
Okay.
I feel like I'm right along with them. Again, if he's your first RB, that's great. I mean, based on how everything is going this year, that kind of seems to be like the case. And that'd be the first pick. So if you get the first pick and then you can go back to back, I'd probably grab another wide receiver and then grab Jacobs. Or grab
it would depend because you'd pick it 1 and then you would
probably
pick
have
again at 13.
Chase or Jefferson or CMC, depending on how you'd play that. Then you'd
be picking at 25. So you'd be in the neighborhood. You could get you might be able to get it done.
Well, and if it's
I will
snake,
say
it should be right there, right? That'd be
I guess it would be if it's going to be a traditional snake. I'm fine with it at 24 overall. It's fine.
So much risk though.
There's a lot of risk, and so what I find myself doing though is actually it depends on what else is available. This is the advice we always have to give. It's going to depend on what your other options are. If all the really good top end wide receivers are gone, and he's the best available running back, then don't reach for a substandard wide receiver. This is why we recommend looking at rankings, using tiers, and kind of knowing what you want to do. And this is one of those things where the risk is baked in. Because if he wasn't that much of a risk, I think this would be incrementally higher. But we don't know enough to really, kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not convinced that he's going to actually hold out for the season in reality. So what I would do is I'd probably just bite the bullet. But if you're squeamish, this is the year where, because of how the draft boards are falling, you could easily, if there is any kind of quality wide receiver available, you could take that, and then you could get Joe Mixon and James Conner in the 3rd and 4th round. You know what I mean? There's crazy values at running back this year. So I would not, I wouldn't give anybody the side eye for just being like, I just don't want to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to be involved. You guys figure it out. Maybe you get some value out of it. Great. Good for you. You're willing to take, if you're a risk averse person, if you find yourself drafting Kirk Cousins,
this guy,
you probably won't be rostering Josh Jacobs. Like, if you like to know what you're getting and you don't want to deal with the off the field stuff, I could totally understand just being like, I can get value later. If there's anything decent left, I'm just going to take it. Other running backs. Technically, Amir Abdullah is still the backup running back, but that ain't long for this world. Amir Abdullah, historically not good. They also have Brandon Bolden because McDaniels.
Yeah, that guy.
Because McDaniels. Brandon Bolden, also historically not good.
The bowling ball.
Brandon Bolden is not good at football. He's
the Bolden bowling ball.
One of the luckiest human beings on the planet. So the real winner here to me is Zamir White. And this is one of those, we do talk about running backs you want to handcuff and running backs that you don't care. You know what I mean? This is a must handcuff to me. If I'm throwing in my 2nd round pick on Josh Jacobs, I'm very much interested in getting Zamir White, especially because all camp reports are that he's already being listed as the starter with Josh Jacobs not reporting. So all he had to do was beat out career journeyman Amir Abdullah and career not good Brandon Bolden. The currently Zamir White, RB 60, should be going around 169 overall. Nice. And his ADP is 194. Functionally Mr. Irrelevant. So this is a no-brainer to me. Got to do this. Must do. In fact, I'd probably
Jacobs. Yeah,
I'd probably reach around on it too. Probably give it the old reach around.
Yeah.
Nope.
100% agree.
Yep, that's what you need. Get out of here.
Yeah.
We can't let him do anything. Why? What do you think about Zamir White? I mean, I think he's definitely the backup, but that, good Lord.
No, I mean, as of now, you gotta roster the guy, right? I mean, he's with all the uncertainty of Josh Jacobs, 4th-round pick, which is okay for a running back. He has the size and kind of everything that you kind of need for him to take on that load. I think part of the reason is they feel like maybe they feel confident in who they have. Maybe that's part of the reason why they're not offering Josh Jacobs what he wants. No, he's definitely a guy that we need to keep on our radars for sure.
But we really haven't seen him. I mean, that's the other part of that. It's like he hasn't really been on the field a whole lot.
17 carries.
Yeah, I mean, and that's with a bunch of like he's gonna said, journeymen that have been just there. I don't understand why they haven't seen what they got truly out of him. I get it, he was a rookie, but like, man, it seems very risky to be willing to throw Jacobs out there. I mean, there are great options still in free agency, but I mean, Kareem Hunt has visited 2 places and walked away because he didn't like the contract at this point.
Yeah.
So
no, yeah, it kind of makes me more optimistic about Jacobs signing because, like you said, we've seen Zamir White carry the ball 17 times. That's it. That's not a lot. That's 1 game's worth. So it makes me more optimistic about Josh Jacobs. Like, what do they have? They have Brandon Bolden. They have Zamir White. They have Amir Abdullah. Just kind of a bunch of, as of now, just, a jag kind of player, right? So
terrifying. Absolutely terrifying if without Jacob there. Like, even if he gets injured at this point, like, well, guess you're trusting White.
Especially with Garoppolo. It's not like you have Aaron Rodgers or, whatever quarterback you want to insert who you can rely on passing the ball 65, 70% of the time. You have Garoppolo. Like, you need a strong run game. So,
speaking of Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers' former favorite target, Davante Adams, is still the wide receiver 1 for this team. Very little analysis needed here, gentlemen.
Man, I thought for sure you were going with Hard Knocks off of that. But okay, that works too.
Davante Adams is good at football. We don't really need to spend a whole lot of time on this. He comes in as the wide receiver 8, translates to about 17 overall, where he should be going. He's going at ADP 16. I don't really think there's a whole lot of analysis here. As long as Jimmy Garoppolo can manage to get the ball out of his hand, he should be looking to target Davante Adams early and often. Go ahead and grab him in the early 2nd round of your fantasy drafts. Don't really feel the need to spend a whole lot of time on this unless someone wants to tell me Davante Adams is washed, and you do so at your own peril. The more interesting conversation here is the supporting cast behind Davante Adams. Because McDaniels, Jakobi Meyers is now on the Raiders, because this is just it's almost like Sean. It's the same thing we did with Denver, where Sean Payton just goes and collects his former toys. This is the same thing happening here with the Raiders. Historically, this podcast has been very pro Jakobi Meyers. I can't say I'm a fan of this landing spot, though, or his coach, or his quarterback, or his ownership, people that own the team, really anything, the fan base. Don't really have a whole lot to say. Do still like Jakobi Meyers, though, as on pure talent. Hard for me to get excited here, though, just based on what I expect the volume to be. Opens as wide receiver 49, translates to about 118 overall. The public seems to be sided with me a little bit. ADP 138. Jason, you referenced this already off the top. Why is the public wrong?
I mean, because he's clearly the wide receiver 2 on the team. I mean, we've kind of gone over how many attempts the Raiders normally have for passing. At that point, don't get me wrong, I have Adams clearly as the wide receiver 1. But would I be absolutely shocked if Meyers ends up with over 100 targets this year? No. So, I mean, I think the value is great. And at that point, it depends on who's around him clearly, but you could definitely do worse.
I
Dude catches
agree
balls.
with you. Yeah. Like he's been a top 36 receiver each of the last 2 years. And we're not saying he's going to be a league winner. He's just going to be a solid wide receiver 3, spot starter during bye weeks. He's been that the last 2 years. Here's some guys that he averaged more points than. He missed 4 games last year, but he averaged more points than Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, Christian Watson, Zay Jones, Gabe Davis. Like the list can keep going of guys that are being drafted over him this year. I don't really understand it. I think he's just going to be another a solid wide receiver 3 this year again, and he's not being drafted like that. He's being drafted as we have it, wide receiver 49. And I think there's absolutely no way that he finishes wide receiver 49 if he's healthy all year. He's going to be on the field for 80% of the time. This team used Mac Hollins 80% of their snaps last year. Jakobi Meyers is much better than Mac Hollins. So Jakobi Meyers is going to be on the field. He's clear-cut number 2 guy. And where you're drafting him, it's around guys that you're not sure. Jamison Williams, Rashad Bateman, Tyler Boyd. These are all guys where you're like not really sure where they fit into their offense. So I like Jakobi Meyers is just, fills in on your bench. At worst, he's a spot starter for fantasy, during the bye weeks, the heavy bye weeks. And I think at best he's just another wide receiver 3 season, which is what he's kind of proven the last couple of years.
Well, and the other thing is they also have gotten rid of Darren Waller. I mean, without him there, I feel like it's very easily that Meyers can see some of those targets as well. And then I would assume that more than likely Hunter Renfrow is the one actually doing just the work that nobody wants to do, which is unfortunate because I really like him as a player. Hunter Renfrow is fun to watch because he finds ways to get open and is very quarterback aware. But yeah, it's clearly Meyers at the 2 spot for me, and without a dominant tight end, it's hard not to see him being. I have him currently at 41. So
he's a bench guy, fills in during the bye.
Flex, yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So for me, Meyers is like a low ceiling wide receiver 3, upper end of wide receiver 4. PPR, so you get a little more. Not anything that I'm going to get too excited about. I mean, the player is good. That's kind of the issue, because if you're going by the last 2 seasons, he finished as the wide receiver 29 and the wide receiver 35. So the argument would be, how do you get down to all the way down to 49? And it's like, okay, the hate may be going a little bit too far at that point. The problem is that, talk about Mac Hollins all you want. Mac Hollins was wildly inconsistent. You and I had this argument very publicly, and I was right, by the way, about Mac Hollins was barely even a flex, because it's just a consistency issue. The Waller thing, I think, is more, I think they're going to be shifting to more 11 personnel. They're not going to be running at 12 personnel the way they used to, because they don't have the personnel for that anymore. Renfro's still on the team. We talk about Michael Mayer in a second, but you're going to trust the rookie? I'm not sure about that. So maybe they do. It's McDaniels. You never totally know. McDaniels is a psycho. I would defend that in court, by the way, for those of you who are like, that's slander. No, I'll sue me. Let's defend that in court. I'd love to make that argument. We don't have time here. It's too long. But for the like the player, don't much like the situation, feel like his upside is curtailed. I'd be surprised if he got more than about 800 total yards, like receiving yards. If he got more than that, I'd be pretty shocked. So what you're going to kind of hang your hat on is volume and or touchdowns. And I just don't know that they're going to be efficient enough to sustain 2 wide receivers. That's my concern here, is that will it be consistent enough to do it? I think that's why he's getting kind of downgraded along the way. Speaking of Hunter Renfrow and downgrades, Hunter Renfrow opens as the wide receiver 67, which would be about 189 overall, so nothing. His ADP is 211. No one is interested in rostering Hunter Renfrow, and I got to tell you, I think that's correct. Because if I think you are going to struggle to support 2 wide receivers, the man left in the cold is going to be Hunter Renfrow. They also have Keelan Cole and former Charger DeAndre Carter. How the mighty have fallen.
Former starter last year, DeAndre Carter.
Yeah, well, he ain't starting no more.
Injuries do happen, Neil. I'm just saying there is a chance.
You know what? I actually can't argue about that with you. You know what? Fair enough. I cannot argue that.
Especially on the Raiders.
Injuries do happen, especially on the Raiders. Fair enough. Does anybody have? I don't see any reason to roster Hunter Renfrow. Maybe if Meyers went down, he'd be a very interesting waiver wire type of deal. I say very. He'd be an interesting type of waiver wire deal. But he'd have the same problem that Meyers has, which is the ceiling is capped because Davante Adams is the target monster.
Well, the other
Josh
thing to
Jacobs
kind
is
of,
also the you have two real point centers on this team with Adams and Jacobs, and I just don't see them. I don't see them really being efficient enough or good enough, frankly, to support anything that isn't the two main point centers. And that's what scares me about the Garoppolos, the Meyers, the Renfrows, and then the Michael Meyers, who we'll close with in a moment here.
yeah, the biggest thing I'm worried about for Renfrow is just now he doesn't have. Carr was very familiar with Renfrow. Having Jimmy come in makes me more worried about him, which is another reason I think he's dropped so much. Outside of Meyers coming in.
Weren't they trying to trade him too a couple months ago as well?
Dude, they were trying to trade him, and they're talking about cutting him.
Yeah,
which still might happen, by the way. That's not even necessarily 100% guarantee he's on the team in a couple weeks. That's the other problem, I think, is that
what? Then Carter would be the one who would step up there. I'm just saying it can happen. Look how quick that moves.
I don't know actually how that would go. I don't know that I would care. I already just gave you my entire synopsis for the whole team. I'm interested in Jacobs. I'm interested in Adams, and the rest of it is makes me nervous. Makes me itchy.
Yep. I know we didn't talk about Davante Adams, but I have seen drafts where like Amon-Ra St. Brown's going over Davante Adams, and I just think that's crazy.
Oh, that's wrong. That's an overreaction.
People are totally underrating. The biggest thing I see about
league. Where's that league? You got a link? Can we play in that?
The biggest thing I see about Davante Adams, people saying like, "Oh, Derek Carr threw the ball deep a lot." If you look at Adams's big years when Aaron Rodgers was back-to-back MVPs, he didn't catch he wasn't a deep threat guy. He was just he kind of dominated on all levels. So Davante Adams can win with any quarterback. It's volume.
It has nothing to do with deep threat. Deep threat is not the Davante Adams argument.
Yes.
It's Davante Adams target monster. That is the argument now and forever. It's the argument.
100%.
I mean, I do have him as my wide receiver 3. So
yeah, he could be wide receiver 1.
You're a little more bullet.
But again, we've talked about how much I think they're going to throw.
No, he was asking you who your wide receiver 1 is.
Oh, Justin.
No. I'm saying Davante Adams could be wide receiver 1.
Oh yeah,
yes.
He's on that short list for sure.
Yeah, so I think he's just.
Whereas for Amon-Ra St. Brown to be the wide receiver 1, some weird stuff would have to happen. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Something weird would have to happen. Be a weird year if that was going to be the case.
Yep.
Davante Adams has all the positives of Amon-Ra St. Brown with all the volume, except he's bigger and faster and stronger and has done it in the league for longer. And like, it's what do you want? Like,
plays the Chiefs and Chargers twice.
Yeah, where they're going to be losing by 80 at halftime. Like it's 40 to the Chargers. They'll be losing by 80 to the Chiefs. I
don't know, man. One of those games.
This show is ending, Jason. You're going to get your opportunity tomorrow. I'm not doing this with you right now. I'm already running out of patience with this show, so I'm getting ready to try to wrap us up. If you can't tell, tight ends to replace Waller, Austin Hooper. Hooray for him! He still has a job in the NFL. There's no ADP. It's not rosterable. He hasn't been rosterable for years. Long ago are the days of that one Falcons breakout season, and never again. They did draft Michael Mayer, who, everyone by now knows my feelings about rookie tight end. No, don't want. It is interesting in this scenario, though, because tight end 27, he should be going far away from your draft, and I agree with that. 255 overall. That sounds about right. Like, name to know for the waiver wire might matter at some point in the future. Not something I'm interested in rostering. His ADP is 160. So the public is on it. I'm not. Similar to my Sam Laporta argument from Detroit. Could be somebody someday, but I'm not trusting rookie tight end in fantasy.
Well, and I mean, you also have Cooper in front of him, who has somewhat of a record of playing decently in the fantasy football world and on a professional team.
I'm right there with you, Neil. I think like maybe for a couple weeks in the waiver wire he'll be relevant, but beyond that, don't see much for Michael Mayer.
I'll talk to you about Michael Mayer in week 13.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. And with that, we'll do final thoughts. I already gave mine, which is I'm interested in Josh Jacobs. I'm interested in Davante Adams at their relative ADPs. If I'm going to get Josh Jacobs, I want to handcuff him to Samir White, even though small sample size. I don't care about that because of the price tag. It doesn't cost me hardly anything, if anything. And the rest of it, I'm just going to probably let other people hit each other with sticks about. In every draft I do, there's always somebody that's more interested in the Renfrows, the Meyerses, the Garoppolos, the Meyers. There's always somebody that's more interested than me. So I'm really just interested in the 2 big point centers, and then I'm willing to let everything else go to somebody else. That's my general advice for drafting this team.
Yeah, man, but the good thing is the only like real value here is Meyers. And so if you're looking at that point, I'm willing to take him at that ADP, especially based on who's going around him. So that's my takeaway is that's really the only bargain bin shopping you're doing on this team for me. That I guess Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy's going into draft. So QB2, if you two QB leagues or you're looking for a streamer, I feel like Jimmy's going to be a good option for you.
Streamer waiver wire guy, I couldn't argue with. I could probably do another 45 minutes about arguing the merits of Jimmy Garoppolo versus Dak Prescott. We don't have time for that show, unfortunately.
That'll be during the season, so make sure you like and
tune in on Thursday nights to Roster the People, where Neil and Jason will argue about this until the cows come home for 2 hours. Mike, take us home.
Home. Only thing I'd add is I'd even maybe consider Davante Adams as being in a bargain if he is going in the second round, round.
He's going at 16 overall. So
yeah. So I mean, I can make the argument for him being the 5th wide receiver taken over Diggs, over CeeDee Lamb. So there is slight value there. I still think he can finish wide receiver 1, but other than that, I'm kind of in agreement with you guys. Josh Jacobs, I like Meyers for where he's going, and not much else.
All right. Pretty painless overall. What won't be painless is tomorrow's show, my living nightmare. Tomorrow for the listening audience, these two
so excited.
These two will ruin my day by talking about the Los Angeles Chargers while I sit and nod politely and then fail to do that after about 10 minutes and just scowl into the camera while I eat a sandwich aggressively. That is what we're going to be doing tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow to hear them talk about the Chargers. And until then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!